I was 10 when the war broke out. In fact, I was in England when the war broke out. I was alone in England. My mother brought me back to Holland where they were living. And this was in September, and in May, the Germans marched into Holland.
Long before Audrey Hepburn became the elegant star of Roman Holiday, Sabrina, and Breakfast at Tiffany's, she was a frightened teenager trying to survive Nazi-occupied Holland. The girl, later known for graceful gowns and effortless charm, spent her adolescence hearing bombs, watching neighbors disappear, and wondering whether her family would find enough food to last another day. Yet Hepburn did more than endure the occupation. She used her ballet training to raise money for the Dutch underground, carried messages and supplies, and once reportedly delivered instructions to an Allied airman hiding in the countryside. When German officers approached, the future actress had to improvise a performance that may have saved her life. She rarely presented herself as a hero and insisted that many others had risked far more. Still, the hidden story behind her wartime years reveals a side of Hepburn that movie audiences never saw. Had you heard about Audrey Hepburn's secret work during World War II? Share your answer in the comments. A childhood sent into danger.
She almost died. Somebody, probably a German soldier, shoved her under a tank as the bullets stitched past. And then she lived through the hunger winter, so it's a miracle in a way when you add it all up.
Audrey Kathleen Ruston was born in Brussels in 1929 to a Dutch mother and British father. Her early childhood included comfort, private education, and a growing love of ballet, but it was also unsettled. Her father left the family when Audrey was 6, an event she later described as one of the deepest wounds of her life. By 1939, Europe was moving toward war. Audrey had been attending school in England, but her mother, Baroness Ella van Heemstra, feared Britain would soon be attacked. She brought her daughter to the Netherlands, believing the neutral country would offer safety. That decision had terrible consequences. Germany invaded the Netherlands in May 1940, crushing Dutch defenses within days. Audrey was suddenly trapped under occupation. Because her English-sounding name could attract suspicion, she began using the more Dutch-sounding name Etta van Heemstra. Ballet became both an escape and a discipline. She trained in Arnhem and dreamed of becoming a professional dancer. Outside the studio, however, Nazi control tightened. Radios were confiscated, food disappeared, and fear settled over daily life. The occupation becomes personal. War stopped being a distant political event when it tore directly into Audrey's family. Her uncle, Otto van Limburg-Stirum, was arrested and executed in 1942 in retaliation for resistance sabotage. He had not carried out the attack, but his prominent family name made him a convenient target. His death transformed the family's understanding of the occupation. Audrey's mother had once expressed admiration for fascism and had even met Adolf Hitler before the war. The execution of her brother-in-law destroyed any remaining illusions about Nazi rule. Audrey's half-brother Ian was sent to Germany for forced labor. Another half-brother, Alex, went into hiding to avoid the same fate. Audrey, her mother, and relatives relocated to nearby Velp, where local doctors, clergy members, and ordinary residents were quietly supporting the resistance. She also witnessed Jewish families being forced onto trains. One image remained with her for years, a pale little boy wearing a coat far too large for him as he boarded with his parents. Hepburn later felt a painful connection to Anne Frank, who was almost exactly her age. She was offered opportunities to portray Anne, but reportedly found the memories too close to her own experience. Dancing in the dark.
Didn't know how long the war was going to last, so I went to a ballet school and learned to dance. And in about 1944, about a year before the end of the war, I was quite capable of performing. And it was a sort of some way in which I could make some contribution. And I did give performances to collect money for the underground, which always needed money.
And what about the Germans? What did they do about it?
Let's know about it.
Audrey had one skill that could help the underground without immediately drawing suspicion. She could dance. By 1944, resistance supporters in and around Velp were organizing secret performances called Black Evenings. Musicians and dancers entertained small invited audiences inside private homes. Windows and doors were covered so no light escaped, and guards watched for approaching Germans. The money collected at these gatherings helped support people in hiding, including Jewish families, resistance workers, and young men avoiding forced labor. Audrey designed dances, rehearsed with a pianist, and performed in costumes made by her mother. The audiences could not applaud. Any sudden noise might reveal the gathering to German patrols or informers. Hepburn later remembered that her best audiences made no sound at all. They simply smiled in the darkness. These were not grand theatrical events. They were small, tense gatherings held under the threat of arrest. Audrey was also becoming weak from malnutrition, yet she continued dancing when she could. Her performances offered a few minutes of beauty while quietly raising money for survival. The mission through the woods.
Then, little by little, yes, there was a knock on the door, and they took my uncle away, who 6 months later was shot, and another uncle too. And my brothers went underground. My uncles were the first hostages to be shot in Holland, and it was actually the turning point, because from that day on, an underground was formed.
Audrey's resistance work may have also included carrying underground newspapers, food, and messages. Teenagers were valuable couriers because they could move through towns without attracting the same attention as adult men, who were frequently stopped or seized for labor. The most dramatic account involved an Allied airman hiding near Velp. Hundreds of British and American flyers had been shot down over the Netherlands. Local resistance networks hid them, supplied them, and attempted to move them south toward escape routes. According to the story Hepburn later told, she carried a message to one of these men in the countryside. The instructions told him where to go, what to say, and whom to trust. Completing the delivery took only minutes, but discovery could have led to imprisonment or execution. As Audrey left the area, German or Dutch Nazi officers approached and demanded to see her papers. She quickly bent down, gathered wildflowers, and presented them with an innocent smile. The soldiers accepted the harmless image of a young girl collecting flowers, checked her documents, and allowed her to continue. The moment sounded like a scene written for Hollywood, but Hepburn never used it to make herself seem fearless. She called her contributions small and said many Dutch children had done similar work. To her, helping was not about adventure. It was about choosing a side when remaining neutral was no longer possible. The Hunger Winter.
That's when really the hard times started, because that's when so many reprisals were made and so many people were shot and so many people were rounded up and imprisoned. And after the first few months, all Jews had to wear yellow stars, and they started being rounded up and taken away in trucks. And I'd go to the station with my mother to take a train to the next city, and I'd see cattle trucks filled with Jews, picking up more was standing around us. And I remember so well a little boy, little blonde boy. My mother had to explain all this to me. We did then not yet know that they were going to their death. We'd been told they were going to be taken to special camps.
By late 1944, survival itself became a daily mission. The failed Allied campaign at Arnhem left the region devastated, while German retaliation and transportation breakdowns cut food supplies. The Hunger Winter brought widespread starvation to the occupied Netherlands. Audrey and her relatives ate whatever they could find. Meals included watery soup, stale vegetables, and flour made from tulip bulbs. She became severely malnourished and suffered from amnesia, jaundice, breathing problems, and swelling in her legs. She spent long periods in bed because she was too weak to stand. At other times, the family crowded into a cellar or shelter while fighting raged nearby. The body, later admired for its delicate appearance, had been permanently affected by wartime deprivation. Liberation finally reached Velp in the spring of 1945. Hepburn remembered the smell of gasoline and English cigarettes carried by Allied troops. Food relief followed, including supplies from the organization that later developed into UNICEF. The war was over, but its effects followed her. Her health had been damaged, her family had been scattered, and her dream of becoming a leading ballerina was slipping away. The story she never made about herself.
The very fact that the day we were liberated was so exciting, and that's when life started again. That is what was so exciting about the aftermath of the war. All the things you'd never had, never seen, never eaten, never worn, started to come back again. That was such a stimulus. And then as soon as I could, I wanted desperately to become a dancer, and I got a scholarship in the Rambert Ballet School in London. Everything was new, everything was exciting, and that has stayed with me till today.
Hepburn spoke about the occupation in interviews, but she rarely built her public image around her resistance work. She did not describe herself as a soldier or claim her efforts compared with those who ran major networks, hid families, or died under torture. Some historians have debated the exact scope of her activities because secret resistance work produced few records, especially when involved a teenage courier. Her underground dance performances are supported by Hepburn's own detailed recollections and by research into the resistance circle around Velp. The message-carrying stories came from accounts she shared after the war. The word spy makes the story sound like a glamorous thriller. Her reality was less polished and far more frightening. She was a child living among adults who faced arrest at any moment. Her useful qualities were the ones that later made her famous: discipline, composure, quick thinking, and the ability to control a room without making much noise. Keeping the story understated was consistent with Hepburn's personality. She believed courage belonged to people who acted because action was necessary, not because they expected praise afterward. From war child to humanitarian.
UNICEF thought they were going to get this pretty face, and what they got was a soldier who insisted on going into war zones, civil wars, the dangerous conditions on all of these missions. And she insisted on going in there because there were children who were like her, who were victims of wars started by adults.
After the war, Audrey moved to Amsterdam and then London to continue her ballet training. She eventually learned that lost strength and physical development had limited her chances of becoming a top ballerina. Acting offered another path. Roman Holiday turned her into a major star and earned her an Academy Award. Sabrina, Funny Face, Breakfast at Tiffany's, Charade, and My Fair Lady followed. Audiences saw elegance and warmth, but few understood how much of her calm presence had been formed during years of terror. Late in life, Hepburn stepped away from Hollywood and became a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador. She traveled through Ethiopia, Bangladesh, Sudan, Vietnam, and Somalia, speaking for children facing hunger and war. The work was personal. She remembered being the child who needed food after liberation. She understood that starving families were not distant figures in a news report. She had lived among them and had nearly become one of the children who did not survive. Her final public mission echoed the quiet work she had done as a teenager. She used the ability available to her, whether dancing in a darkened room or speaking before world leaders, to help people who could not safely speak for themselves. Now it's time to hear from you. Do you think Audrey Hepburn's wartime experiences changed the way audiences should understand her films and later humanitarian work? Let us know in the comments section below.